When the one who truly loved her walks away. The psychological shift inside a narcissistic woman. There's a moment, quiet, invisible to others, when the narcissist finally feels the sting of losing control. Psychologists call it narcissistic injury, but to her nervous system it feels like danger. Not emotional discomfort, actual threat. Because losing you isn't simply losing a relationship. It's losing the person who held her identity together, the reflection she depended on, the audience that made her feel real. On the outside, she may still look composed, even proud, but inside, things begin to crack. Restlessness takes over. Irritation sits just beneath the surface. She feels emotions she doesn't know how to manage because she's never learned how. She outsourced emotional grounding to you. You were her stabilizer, her mirror, her proof of significance. Without that reflection, she doesn't just feel lonely, she feels hollow. Instead of grieving the ending or reflecting on what went wrong, the way emotionally healthy people do, she shifts into a different mode, defense. Psychologists describe this as defensive grandiosity, a protective shield her mind throws up to avoid shame. Rather than face the painful truth that she was loved and lost, she rewrites the story. She becomes the misunderstood one, the victim, and you become the reason things fell apart. Not because it's true, but because that version hurts less. Admitting fault would threaten the perfect image she has built, so instead she projects the blame outward. Suddenly, you might hear that you were controlling, unstable, or never good enough. But beneath that narrative is a simpler truth. She needs a story where she isn't the one who failed. This part is often the most painful for the person who loved her. You may hear rumors or twisted versions of your memories through other people. You may feel confused, angry, or tempted to correct the narrative. Psychologists call this stage reputation sabotage, not because she hates you, but because losing control terrifies her. If she can rewrite the story, she feels powerful again. And as long as you react, defend, argue, question, you're still emotionally tied to her. That reaction becomes the fuel she feeds on. The antidote is not confrontation, it's distance. Silence becomes more than avoidance. It becomes a boundary, and eventually it becomes healing. But silence does something she never expects. It creates emptiness. And when that emptiness remains, when you don't chase or respond or soften, something inside her begins to panic. The anger fades, not because she has found closure, but because it stopped working. Control turns to anxiety, and that's when the return begins. Psychologists refer to this as hoovering, named after the vacuum because its intention is to pull you back in. It may come as softness, nostalgia, or sudden vulnerability. You might hear phrases like, "I've been thinking, no one ever cared the way you did. I've changed. Can we just talk?" To the unhealed heart, these words feel like hope, like maybe things could be different. But to a trauma-informed therapist, this moment is predictable. It's not healing, it's strategy. She isn't seeking connection, she's seeking access. What feels like love is actually fear disguised as longing. It's the panic of losing power. And this is the most dangerous point for the survivor, because the same person who caused the pain becomes the same person offering relief. The brain recognizes the cycle and the trauma bond tightens. Relief feels like love. But if you've begun healing, if clarity has taken the place confusion once held, her return feels different. Not magical, not romantic, just familiar and painfully empty. When she realizes she can no longer reach you emotionally, the final shift happens. Collapse or replacement. Psychologists describe this as identity desperation. She may scramble for someone new, not for love, but for stability. Not for connection, but for validation. Because sitting alone with her emptiness means confronting everything she has spent her life avoiding: shame, insecurity, and the fact that she does not know how to love without power. And here is the truth most people struggle to accept. She does not mourn losing you. She mourns losing the version of herself she could access through you. So yes, she cared. But she cared in the way someone cares about a mirror, not a partner. She cared about how you made her feel admired, forgiven, important, untouchable. But she did not care in the way love truly requires, because real love demands empathy, accountability, humility, and reciprocity. And she has only ever known love as possession, validation, and control. Your healing isn't about proving she was wrong. It isn't about hoping she wakes up one day full of regret. Your healing is realizing something far more powerful. You didn't lose love. You lost a performance. And now, finally, you are free to build a life where love isn't a battlefield, where safety isn't earned through pain, and where connection doesn't require abandoning yourself. A life where love feels safe. A life where love feels mutual. A life where love feels real. Sometimes, after everything has fallen apart, she comes back with words that sound soft, heavy, and full of meaning. At first, it can feel like she's finally seen what you went through. The apology might sound like something out of a late-night confession, raw, reflective, and almost poetic. But psychologists warn that these apologies are often performances, not transformations. True accountability isn't in what someone says once. It's in how they behave repeatedly. It's empathy, consistent action, and responsibility. But in the world of narcissistic psychology, apologies serve a different purpose. They are not bridges, they're fishing lines. So when she says things like, "I never appreciated you," or "I finally see how toxic I was," understand this. She isn't suddenly enlightened. She has simply realized that vulnerability is the quickest way back into your heart. And if you once loved deeply, that moment can feel confusing, almost intoxicating. Your brain, conditioned to the cycle of emotional starvation and sudden tenderness, may interpret those words as proof of change. Psychologists call this trauma bond reinforcement, where the nervous system mistakes emotional intensity for emotional intimacy. The hard truth is, real change isn't declared, it's lived. And before you let those words pull you back, you have to pause, breathe, and watch the pattern, not the apology. If the vulnerability doesn't work, something inside her shifts. The tone changes. The desperation grows. This is when her identity begins to unravel. Without access to you, she loses access to the version of herself she liked the most. The admired one, the desired one, the important one. And when that version disappears, the emotional scaffolding collapses. Many psychologists describe this as a regressive spiral. She falls back into the emotional habits she learned long before adulthood. Tantrums, accusations, guilt-tripping, or punishing silence. She may suddenly accuse you of being selfish or cold. She may rewrite history, exaggerate your flaws, or insist you ruined everything. But beneath the chaos, the intention is simple: influence. This is the stage where many victims feel guilt or anxiety, as if they're abandoning someone they're responsible for. Psychologists call this the fawn response, a survival instinct that teaches you to keep the peace to stay safe. But healing requires something different: sitting with the discomfort of someone else's emotions without making them your burden. Boundaries become your oxygen. Silence becomes your defense. Neutrality becomes power. And when neither remorse nor rage pulls you back, another shift begins. One that can feel like a punch to the chest. Suddenly, she appears happy again, confident, replaced. She may parade a new relationship, posting declarations of perfect connection and instant happiness, as if years of complexity simply evaporated. To the outside world, she looks healed. To you, it may feel like proof that you were the problem. But psychologists are clear. This isn't love. This is identity stabilization. The new person isn't chosen, they are used. Not as a partner, but as a refill. And while she puts on a show of glowing happiness, beneath the mask is a quiet question she desperately hopes will haunt you. Was I not enough? This stage can reopen old wounds and make you doubt what was real. But here's the truth you have to hold on to: you were not replaced, you were recycled. The cycle continues because it was never about who you were, only what you provided. If the new supply fails to stabilize her, if they don't give her the emotional mirror you once did, another shift happens. Collapse. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies, but an internal unraveling psychologists call ego disintegration. Without anyone to project onto, all the emotions she spent her life avoiding, shame, insecurity, fear, turn inward. That's when she may reach out one last time with a dramatic plea. I can't live without you. You're the only person who ever understood me. Losing you destroyed me. For someone with a soft heart, this moment is the deepest temptation. The part of you that once wanted to save her wakes up again. But now you must remember something profound. Your empathy is a gift, not a leash. You can care without returning. You can feel compassion without self-sacrifice. And finally, when the noise settles, when the guilt fades, when the silence becomes steady, you begin to see the truth most survivors don't recognize until they are finally free. You were not loved. You were used for validation, power, admiration, identity, control. Not because you weren't enough, but because she never learned how to love without possession. Healing isn't about hating her or proving anything to her. Healing is about finally understanding the architecture of the relationship, the way it was structured to keep you doubting yourself, giving more and shrinking smaller. And slowly, with boundaries, reflection, therapy, self-connection, and time, something shifts. You no longer crave intensity. You no longer mistake chaos for passion. You stop longing for someone who only loved the reflection, not the person. And eventually, you learn what real love feels like. Calm, mutual, consistent, safe, whole. Not a battlefield, not a cycle, not a performance, but a place where you don't have to earn your worth. Just exist in it. There comes a moment in healing that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or a dramatic breakdown. Instead, it slips in quietly, like a soft breath you didn't know you'd been holding. And suddenly, without forcing it, you notice something has changed. You're no longer waiting for her to come back. You're no longer hoping she'll finally understand the pain she caused, or that she'll transform into the person she pretended to be in the beginning. And strangely, you stop craving closure from the very person who damaged you. Not because you've moved on in the cliché sense, but because your nervous system finally grasps a truth your heart resisted. Some people aren't sent to teach you love. They're sent to teach you boundaries, self-respect, and the strength required to walk away. That realization marks the shift. You are no longer her source of validation, her emotional mirror, her project, or her possession. You become someone she cannot control, someone she no longer has access to. And in that separation, something you never expected happens. You feel free. But freedom isn't peaceful at first. Not in the way healthy people experience calm. For a narcissist, the silence after you leave becomes a void, what psychologists call narcissistic depletion. They are left without stimulation, without emotional fuel, without someone to validate their superiority or react to their chaos, without love, fear, anger, or confusion coming from you. She is forced to sit alone with the very emotions she has run from her entire life. Worthlessness, shame, and invisibility. For you, the silence feels strange too, not because you miss the abuse, but because peace feels like emptiness when you've lived in emotional survival mode. The brain, conditioned by unpredictability, adrenaline, and emotional intensity, doesn't immediately recognize safety. So your mind begins asking intrusive questions. Was it really that bad? Did I overreact? Could she have changed if I stayed? Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the tug-of-war between what you lived and what you hoped for. And because trauma bonds operate like addiction, your brain doesn't miss her. It misses the cycle of relief after chaos, the tiny scraps of affection that once felt like oxygen. Healing now becomes a process of untangling truth from illusion. Writing, therapy, nervous system work, these tools begin reconnecting you with reality. Slowly, clarity replaces fantasy. You stop blaming yourself. You stop justifying her behavior. You stop romanticizing the rare good moments. Meanwhile, she moves on quickly, at least on the surface, smiling, posting, flaunting someone new. But it's not love. It's replacement. She hasn't healed. She's redirected. No one is special to a narcissist. People are roles, utilities, mirrors. When you finally understand this, something inside you settles. Time continues doing the work your mind could never rush. You sleep better. Your body stops bracing for the next explosion or accusation. And little by little, you rediscover pieces of yourself that were buried. Your humor, your boundaries, your identity, your joy. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. Not the absence of scars, but the rising wisdom that came from surviving what tried to break you. And then one day, almost unexpectedly, you cross the final threshold. You stop replaying the past. You stop needing answers. You stop wanting closure. Because now you finally understand the truth. Closure isn't something you get from them. It's something you give yourself the moment you decide their access to you is over forever. And in that moment, you don't just survive the story. You end it. And you become the person you were always meant to be. Closure isn't something she hands you like a final conversation, an apology, or a confession. It's something you give yourself when you finally recognize that the ending was never in her control. You stop being the wounded one who waited for answers. You stop being the survivor who replayed the story searching for meaning. Instead, you become the person who walked through fire and emerged whole. Maybe scarred, maybe changed, but stronger, wiser, and no longer breakable. That shift is subtle at first. It doesn't arrive in a moment of rage or some triumphant declaration. It comes quietly, often on a random day, when you realize you no longer need to run back to the version of yourself that needed her approval. That's when the story truly ends. Not when she releases you, but when you release the part of you that once believed you required her to feel loved, seen, or valuable. As time continues doing what time does best, something profoundly human begins to unfold. Your nervous system, once wired for emotional war, slowly remembers what safety feels like. Psychologists call this nervous system re-regulation, the gradual rewiring of a body that spent too long bracing for volatility. The silence that once felt suffocating morphs into stillness. The absence of her criticism becomes room to think. The lack of chaos becomes peace. And in that peace, little fragments of yourself begin returning. Curiosity, creativity, humor, a sense of calm, even the ability to enjoy simple moments without anticipating disruption. Trauma specialists describe this as reclaiming the self. The moment your identity stops revolving around what you survived and begins expanding into who you truly are. Meanwhile, on her side, there's a different kind of process unfolding, one that has nothing to do with healing. For someone with deep narcissistic patterns, self-reflection is intolerable. Growth requires responsibility, and accountability requires vulnerability, two things her ego cannot risk. So instead of facing the emotional fallout, she does what she's always done. She suppresses. But suppression isn't resolution, it's storage. And what gets stored gets repeated. Psychologists call this repetition compulsion, the unconscious reenactment of unresolved wounds. So her cycle continues. Idealize, use, discard, panic, replace. To the outside world, it may look thrilling, dramatic, even enviable. But experts in personality disorders are clear this isn't living. It's running. Running from abandonment, running from emptiness, running from the truth of who she really is beneath the mask. And when she begins the cycle again with someone new, you may feel a sting. Not because you want her back, but because a part of you wonders whether she's finally loving someone, right? That's when you remind yourself of the truth. The new person isn't better. They're just uninformed. What you're seeing isn't love. It's the repeat of the opening act. Understanding that becomes a turning point because it reframes everything. You weren't replaced due to lack, you were removed because you stopped feeding the cycle. That's not rejection. That's liberation. As your healing deepens, your emotional patterns begin to shift too. You recognize red flags earlier, not as invitations to fix, but as warnings to walk away. You stop confusing intensity with connection and chaos with passion. You no longer sacrifice yourself to keep someone else comfortable. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all, you finally understand the difference between being chosen and being used. Eventually, there comes a moment where you can think about her or the relationship, not with longing or anger, but with neutrality. That is emotional closure. It doesn't come from an apology or explanation. It comes from understanding. You no longer need her to validate your pain, name her mistakes, or acknowledge the damage. You no longer need anything from her at all, because now you know the truth. You were never difficult to love. You were simply asking for a kind of love she was incapable of giving. And when that truth settles, the story ends. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet knowing. It's over. So if you find yourself standing in that tender space between who you were and who you are becoming, breathe. You walked through a psychological storm many never escape. And now, you have the rare opportunity to build connections rooted not in survival, fear, or intensity, but in reciprocity, safety, and respect. Your story doesn't end with what broke you. It begins with what you choose now. And choosing yourself wasn't just the victory. It was the beginning of your rebirth.